Okay, I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Cindy, will you do roll call, please?
Chris Jenkins,
Here.
Lester Lamont,
Here.
Mike Madone,
Here.
Rich Millard, Jim Nelson,
Here.
Cindy Nordell is here, and Mildred Wentz.
All right, so our last meeting was in April, and we're tracking down those minutes, so we'll defer that till next meeting. So we will start out with a presentation from our city planner, Patrick Mulready.
Randy could pull my PowerPoint up. So, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Historic Preservation Committee. My name is Patrick Mulready. I am the city planner for the city of Canyon City, and I have been here for my fifth anniversary is coming up in January. So, I was asked to present this presentation to you about our comprehensive plan. And if you have any questions during the presentation, that's fine. I'm more than happy to answer them, but I have reserved a slide at the end specifically for questions, should they come up. So, in terms of the comprehensive plan, and I'm aware that some of you may have some background in urban planning and urban design, so I apologize if some of this comes across as a bit remedial. This was actually a presentation I put together for local service clubs. There probably isn't a whole lot of experience in urban planning and urban design, so bear with me if this seems a bit basic. So, what is long-range planning? At its core, long-range planning, or comprehensive planning, it comes down to an analysis of three things: establishing where the organization currently is, or point A; establishing where the organization wants to go, or point B; and determining the path that's the best way to get from point A to point B. Now, why do communities plan? Well, land use planning is a function that's typically reserved for local governments. The state does not create a statewide land use plan, and the federal government does not create a national land use plan. Development review, or current planning, focuses on land use requests that are going on right now. It does not look down a long time horizon towards the future. The Colorado Local Government Land Use Enabling Act not only authorizes local governments to establish land use regulations, it requires this of local governments as an expression of their police powers for the preservation of public health, safety, and welfare. This is, in fact, one of the justifications that was relied upon by the Supreme Court in the 1920s for the decision that made zoning a constitutional expression of a municipality's police powers. Now, taking a comprehensive look at the future and determining the goals you'd like the future to meet provides you with the tools that are necessary to make good decisions in the here and now that will ultimately achieve those goals. Canyon City has gone through the process of establishing a comprehensive plan once before. This originally in 1979 to reconcile the incorporation of South Canyon and East Canyon into Canyon City, and then more recently as an effort undertaken to update the original comprehensive plan in 2001. Now remember that the last update to the comprehensive plan was 20 years ago, and a lot can happen in a community over 20 years. It's not clear how much public input went into the creation of that edition of the comprehensive plan, and this ultimately became clear as a result of some projects that were submitted to the city in 2019. This exposed the fact that both the city's comprehensive plan and its existing land use code at the time were not set up to handle this particular situation very well. As a result, the city applied for and received a grant from the state of Colorado to supplement a budget allocation for the city's 2020 budget and do a complete rewrite of both the comprehensive plan as well as the city's zoning, subdivision, and development regulations at the same time to ensure that both reflected one another. Now, establishing where we are, and this is setting where we are as point A. This involved a lot of data collection. beginning with an analysis of the historic development patterns within Canyon City. It's also included annexations history, zoning history, and historic development patterns that have occurred through the city. There was also an extensive inventory of the city on a street-by-street basis to get a sense of the walkability, architecture, and overall character of the city. Finally, there was a summation of both the existing comprehensive plan, the existing zoning and subdivision regulations, and the major studies that have been conducted over the previous 10 years. This established basically the current issues the city was facing and laid us firmly on, okay, this is where we are, point A, our starting point. And you can see, I should probably give you that list. That list of the current issues included our current Title, what was at the time our current Title 17, our subdivisions, which was exhibit or Appendix A to Title 16, our annexation regulations, which were contained in Title 16, the comprehensive update from 2001, the Arkansas River Corridor Master Plan, riverfront zoning districts, which were created in the latter part of 2019, Canyon City Vision Plan, the Downtown Strategic Plan, Highway 50 Corridor Plan, that was one of the recommendations for how we should diversify our commercial zoning in Canyon City, Eastern Fremont County Trails Open Space and River Corridor Plan, and the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments Housing Needs Assessment, which established that we are in desperate need of a diversification of our housing stock. So with that established, we then went on to talking about where we wanted to be, or point B in our analysis. Now, public engagement was going to be vital to the success of this effort if the plan was going to be truly representative of the aspirations of the community. So our consultants for this project were Halcyon Levine, a planning and urban design firm out of Chicago, Illinois. And because they were essential to our public outreach, we wanted to make sure that we welcomed them to Canyon City style. So you can see in the bottom picture there, we actually took them on a Jeep tour when they first came here. And they found that one of the most fascinating things that has ever happened to them the first time they visited a new community. So the public engagement phase of the project occurred between September and December 2020 and involved a variety of input methods. For 2 days, our consultants hosted interviews with key community stakeholders in small business, real estate, banking, local developers, historic preservation, recreation and river activities, utility providers, local arts and culture mavens, schools and other public agencies, and civic organizations. A design charrette held at the Abbey Event Center provided participants with real-time feedback on preference surveys and visual preference surveys. Do you like image A or image B better, that sort of thing. And their input, based on an app that they could download to their phone, was instantly tabulated, and the results were put up under the projection screen in the meeting. It's fascinating use of technology in that process. DIY meeting kits and issue surveys were sent to a cross-section of local professionals, civic and community organizations, homeowners associations, and elected officials. There was also a project website, picturecanyoncity2040.com, that was established to provide an opportunity for people to complete a community questionnaire or participate in something called a map social function, where pictures could be uploaded as reference points on a map of Canyon City, and comments could be added on where the public thought things were working well or that needed to be preserved, potential opportunities that were being missed, and areas that really needed attention as they've been lacking for some time. These outreach methods yielded more than 1,000 points of engagement input into the desired direction for Canyon City. And considering that all of this was happening during the middle of a pandemic at the time, these were considered extremely good results. As the public engagement phase drew to a close, a series of Joint Planning Commission and City Council meetings occurred to vet this information. These meetings began to lead into reviews of the early drafts for both the comprehensive plan and the Unified Development Code. Now, the how we get there phase, or what we came to call with our plan the pathway to the future. All comprehensive plans establish a vision statement and a set of guiding principles as the foundation of the plan. In this case, it also established 8 goals and a series of objectives for each goal. A thorough examination of each of these goals is then undertaken within the plan as a series of chapters. These goals are in the areas of land use and development, residential areas, economic development, downtown and riverfront areas, transportation and mobility, community facilities and infrastructure, community character, which includes cultural and historic resources, and parks and open space. Again, continuing with the how we get there analysis, after all this work, what is the comprehensive plan intended to do with this information? Now, certainly, it has land use implications. One of the most important tools in the comprehensive plan is the future land use plan, against which, for example, all future rezoning and annexation requests will be measured. But it does more than this. First, it establishes a priority list of objectives and tasks to be accomplished and rates both their relative importance within the plan and the level of complexity for each one. City Council has already determined that this is a policy tool that can be used to help shape municipal budget setting going forward in order to ensure that the tasks called for within the plans get fully funded and completed. Second, it is a marketing tool to attract investment, new business, and tourism. This plan says something about a community that has gone through the process of such self-evaluation and knows where it wants to go in its future. This is a healthy measure of stability that is appealing to decision makers when it comes to investment, relocation, and expansion. It's also a vital information resource about the community for the community. It's a statement of confidence that the community has made about itself, which helps with potential grant funding, as both state and federal sources of grant dollars want to know that a project that they are potentially going to be funding is one called for by the community as part of a comprehensive plan. And it is a tool that the public can access and use at any time to know what the priorities the city has established across a vast array of subjects that will affect quality of life. Now, in conclusion, the 2021 Comprehensive Plan is free to anyone who wants to download a copy. It is available on the website. If you go to the Planning and Zoning webpage and click Long Range Plans, it's the top item under the list of comprehensive plans that the city has done. I should advise you that this plan is approximately 153 megabytes in size, so depending upon the speed of your internet connection, you may want to allow for a few minutes for a full download of this. But once it's downloaded, you can either print it or save it to your hard drive yourself and read it at your leisure. I encourage everyone to read the comprehensive plan and make sure you share and enjoy it, because this is a plan that was created for the community, so it should be used, and I would encourage everyone to use it. Now, planning practitioners recommend that comprehensive plans be updated every 5 to 7 years in practice for municipalities, rather than the 20 years it took us to get around to updating it this past time around. So hopefully the next time we begin looking to update this will be in the 2026, 2027, or 2028 timeframe. So with that concludes my presentation. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about the comprehensive plan. So please, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. Yeah, do we have any questions?
And I should point out, last month, Canyon City received this planning award from the Colorado Association for American Planning at their conference in Vail.
Patrick, of the 8 sections that the plan identifies that you showed 2 or 3 slides ago, and the matrix of prioritizations in terms of action items, what part or parts of the city are responsible for pursuing those pieces? So inside your organization, who's responsible for pursuing what? And then outside, other committees and commissions, what are they responsible to do?
So There are a variety of municipal departments, and for that matter, even outside agencies that are called partners in each of these recommendations. If you go through the matrix that's in these gold highlighted pages at the end of the document, you will see that it begins to describe which of the agencies will be involved in a particular project, and again, it groups them based upon the various chapters within the comprehensive plan. It establishes a priority for them, and then that can be used for budget setting purposes. But Public Works will be involved in this. Parks and Recreation will have involvement in this. To the extent that we've got projects that are being called for historic preservation, this committee and Lisa's department will be involved with this. So it's cross-discipline to all of them.
And if I can add on to that, Ryan and I in particular, in terms of the Main Street program and downtown, trying to evaluate the organizations we have in the community to figure out what organizations can help and where they can help. Right now, it's pretty high level. We do have the Historic Preservation Commission on this in a number of areas. We need to tweak it yet, but then once we figure this out and work with creating this partnership of organizations, so to speak, then we can work our way down into details of all of the different plans, all the different task lists we have from different plans to figure out how we can divvy those up in the community as well. So there's it's going to be a long-term affair to figure that all out, but very, very much in the heart of this partnership is the Historic Preservation Commission and other organizations.
Mr. Chairman, I think Councilmember Schmischer would like to ask a question.
Sorry, I'm not sure how formal we are in these meetings. I just wanted to add a brief perspective from City Council. There are a lot of action items in these matrices, and it's a lot of work that needs to be done. One of the things that we wanted to make sure didn't happen from a council perspective is that it wasn't just one more plan that was sitting on the shelf that wasn't actually being used and wasn't actually being implemented. As the adage says, if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority. So I want to say maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, we had a meeting about how do we prioritize amongst all of these action items within the comprehensive plan, identifying those that are maybe the easiest to do, the most feasible to do, the ones that we can really get started on now and not just let it sit. And we certainly would very much welcome any input from the Historic Preservation Commission or committee into how to prioritize that. So as you have a chance to download it and take a look through, if there are certain agenda items or certain actions on that priority matrix that you would like to see happen sooner rather than later, I would very much welcome having that input and would be happy to feed it into those deliberations as well. Thank you.
And as an aside, I should point out that one of the projects that's come to me for commencement of work beginning in 2023 is going out for an RFP to find a firm that's going to help us with the design for Clock Tower Plaza. We would like to make, what the comprehensive plan is recommending is making Clock Tower Plaza into kind of a trendy urban space with landscape features, retail incubator spaces, public seating areas. Right now, Clock Tower Plaza is essentially an underutilized surplus parking area, and we think it can be a lot more than that for downtown.
One of the first things we'll be doing as the Historic Preservation Commission is working toward development of a historic preservation plan. And that seems to fit with what has been outlined in the comprehensive plan. I guess one of the things that would be useful for us is to understand the schedule and the plans for updating the downtown strategic plan for, there's a couple of places in the comprehensive plan where it mentions expanding designated historic zones. You know, understanding kind of how you're going to be approaching this, whether there's a common database we should be using, you know, how we can coordinate our work in developing the surveys that would support the historic preservation plan and actually putting that together. So how do you see some of this fitting together most effectively?
Well, the lead on this will probably come through Lisa. Lisa is the one who's got the most information about the historic structures, and the next time we do an evaluation of the areas downtown that could potentially qualify to be listed as historic places, Lisa will have that criteria.
And the, looking at future projects for resurveying, I've mentioned to the group at the last meeting, the downtown historic district, the last time it was surveyed was almost 20 years ago. So looking at possibly to 2024, 2025 of doing an update on that survey would be a good priority for this commission. There is potential for other buildings that were listed as non-contributing as part of that initial survey that was done that could now technically qualify for being a contributing building based on historic remodels that were done. They weren't historic at that time when they were surveyed, but they are now 50 years or older historic remodels. And possibly extending them another block or two, that would be something that we would definitely include as part of the survey in surrounding areas. And certain potential going east, and maybe a couple areas south or north. I know the library was included at one point. There's another building that a block down from it that could be possibly, so that will be something that we can think of as part of a priority for that plan.
I think planning is ultimately supportive of all of this. As structures get listed as an historic location, actually put on the register, it gives some certainty that that building and that urban form that it's created is not going to go away and be scraped off at some point in the future. So that kind of certainty is something that, in a planning sense, we kind of like.
You mentioned the public involvement, the engagement that was part and parcel of development of the comprehensive plan. Are there ongoing public engagement plans for the planning department that, again, we're seeking public engagement as well in developing the historic preservation plan, getting buildings nominated, determining priorities for both downtown and residential areas. It would be good to do whatever we do for public engagement in cooperation, I think, with what you're doing.
Sure. So as far as the comprehensive plan itself, this project has been completed. So I don't think we're going to be going out to update this for probably another 5 to 7 years. We will, of course, do a big public engagement phase. This is a big project. I think the next real opportunity that planning is going to offer for public improvement will be when we start working with someone that we selected to help us with the design for Clock Tower Plaza. That's an integral part of the fabric of downtown, so we want to make sure that we have public outreach to stakeholders downtown, not just merchants who have businesses and building owners downtown, but the public who visits there. We want to make sure we get a broad selection of public input that will begin to shape some of the design concepts that we come forward with. And ultimately, from those design concepts, narrow them down to probably 2 or 3 that we then want to take to Planning Commission and City Council for a final selection.
Yeah, I would add too that this is early in the process, but we're trying to get what's referred to as a Centennial Grant, which is a very large once-in-a-100-year kind of a grant. That one, which would come along in 2023, would require a lot of community input. We're going down this road more for outdoor activity, river improvement kind of activity, but this grant requires a much more holistic look at the community. So that one will definitely require a lot of engagement. And on the planning side in general, like the downtown strategic plan and the East Access Corridor Plan and the Arkansas River Master Plan and all of those plans, I wouldn't anticipate additional planning right now because the community is very spent on plans. There's a lot of plans out there. We're much more in the implementation mode, but you're at a point right now in the Historic Preservation Commission where you're at a very good point to actually do some of your work and have input in the direction of the implementation of those plans. And that's like we were talking about in the earlier meeting, having like a neighborhood map that shows key properties that are now new to the list, I guess you could say. Those types of planning, that type of planning on the part of the HPC could be very helpful in the implementation of these plans. Because quite honestly, you look at the downtown or the downtown strategic plan, and it shows whole neighborhoods that are just completely gone and rebuilt. And I don't see that as being a possibility in here. But having a key handle on what properties would be good or what neighborhoods are key, the properties are in good shape and there's good historic value, that'd be very helpful in helping planning in the future, or implementation in the future. Similar to, like I was talking about the downtown Main Street program and the matrix we're creating for that. That's why we're including you in this, is so we can include historic preservation and historic perspectives in our efforts downtown. Half of the battle with economic development is trying to work towards solutions that we can attract, but attract solutions that we want. And if we can, like Patrick said with the comp plan, if we can have a good handle on what direction we'd like to go downtown, it's going to be a lot easier to attract the businesses we'd like to attract downtown, the people to our community, and then control to some extent the type of growth that happens here instead of being controlled by the growth that happens here. So I think you're in a very good position right now to contribute on the implementation side of things. But as far as more plans, I get a lot of pushback from people that we don't want any more plans in this community. We want to implement some of the plans that are there. So
Enough introspection, let's actually start doing something.
Let's actually start doing something. And a lot of what you're seeing and will be seeing in the next year, and have seen so far, is based on these plans: the Downtown Strategic Plan, US 50 Access Plan, Arkansas River Corridor Master Plan. All of these plans are key to a lot of decisions that are happening right now.
Rick, maybe one other thing that might be of interest to the commission would be the New Method Laundry property, just as you're talking about downtown. I know it's come up a couple of times in council about kind of the city's thoughts on it, but if you wanted to share about that as well.
Yeah, that's it's sad for one person in this room in particular, a couple of us really though. New Method Laundry is a work in process right now. Just to give you the history, we found out that the building was available for sale a couple of years ago. We were approached by neighboring businesses concerned about the building because it poses a structural challenge, a structural risk for the neighboring buildings, and they were telling us that it posed a public safety risk. So we took a look at it to purchase the building and to see what we could do, and determined immediately that the building wasn't safe. It had to come down. We began the process of doing our due diligence in terms of environmental concerns. We've got a brownfield grant. We went to work finding out whether there was contamination there. We were advised by the EPA that this could be a very long process. It could be a very expensive cleanup if there's contamination from the dry cleaner, because dry cleaners are notorious. There's contamination, unfortunately. So now we are waiting for word about how we can proceed with it. The depth of the contamination, the complexity of the cleanup of the contamination, and they are pretty much dictating what we can and will dictate what we can and can't do with that site. So the plan now would be to get possession of the building, take it down, determine the rest of the contamination underneath the building, and then at this point, cap it off and turn it into a parking lot. That parking lot then would be continued to the backside of the alley onto Macon, where the city already purchased the property behind it for parking. So the plan right now, if we can do it decoratively, would be great, but the plan right now is to convert New Method into parking. We don't have a good time frame on that yet. We're waiting for a report. The company that's going to provide the report operates on its own timeline. They're actually a Superfund contractor, and they are all over the region, so it's tough to get that report for one small little dry cleaner. But once we get that, we'll be talking to our environmental attorney and trying to figure out where we go from there. So New Method ultimately will be owned by the city eventually and taken down for parking purposes. So it should.
On that property? How,
I don't know I don't know for sure. It's 3 storefronts, basically. You know the size of that offhand?
I think it's 75.
75?
I think it's 75 feet. I think it's either 325s or 335s. It's the same as 309, 311, and 313. They're all those skinny lots.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the plan. That's the plan for New Method. We don't know the timing yet. And
I
it's-
just bring that up, that it helps offset some of the issues of losing the parking around the clock tower, which is half a block away, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it brings it closer. You know, a lot of talk was turning Constantino's into a parking lot, but a lot of the feedback that I get is that people won't walk that far. You know, they won't park there. Tourists might, and then walk downtown. But there's better uses for that site. It's you don't like to see buildings come down in a historic district, but if you were to go in that building, you would not be comfortable in it. It's in really bad shape, unfortunately. It's fascinating to be in it. It really is. I mean, it's fascinating to go in that building, but it's really not safe. And we had an engineering study done to determine how to bring it down, so we'll have to shore up the walls, the neighboring walls, the shared walls, and treat those for being exterior walls. But there needs to be work put into the building to bring it down. We have to determine that yet, the cost of that. So there's quite a few steps yet with that one.
That building is not a contributing building to the historic downtown. In fact, it's just outside of the border.
By like
For-
a building, isn't it?
By a building,
By
or
a
yeah.
building? Yeah.
So it's not a part of any downtown historic district. It is bordering it in a way, but it's not a contributing building. There was a reason why they cut it off in the middle of the block on that side.
Related to sustainability, are there city goals and objectives that factor into the Historic Preservation Commission? I mean, by discouraging tearing down historic buildings, we're keeping stuff out of the landfill. But, you know, beyond that, are there sustainability goals and objectives that we should be aware of?
Most of the sustainability goals fall into the area of land use and development, and then infrastructure. I don't know that they extend into historic preservation, but again, if there are priorities you'd like the city to pursue in that area, as Councilmember Schmischer said, this is the time to, you know, state those so that we can get them on the record.
And just to clarify, it doesn't have to be right now during this meeting, but would certainly welcome those conversations, but I think, as Director Mulready mentioned, time is of the essence, because there is this desire to start implementing and to start actually doing.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply there was a pop quiz at the end of this meeting.
It's now or never. It's,
I know myself, I have to dig into the comprehensive plan quite a bit, but are there any more questions?
but some of the, we just had recently, Southern Colorado Startup Week, which highlighted our community. It was a startup week. It was an event, a 4-day event that took place in Colorado Springs, Florence and Canyon, and Pueblo. The largest, the most well-attended sessions were here, but a lot of that was on the live, work, play environment we have here, and the infrastructure changes we're making to promote business, that sort of a thing. But the character of our downtown and the adjacency, is that a word, to our trail systems and outdoor spaces, that's really what draws people here. So when you talk to anybody that's visiting here that's managed to come off a US 50 for the first time ever and realize there's a downtown, they're blown away by the character of our downtown, the historic nature of our downtown. I mean, we're like the 5th oldest city in Colorado, so let's keep that character. Like I said before, you're at a pretty good time to start influencing some decisions that need to happen in our community.
Heritage tourism is something that we've worked with the Fremont County Heritage Commission and the County Tourism Council to develop, and I've noticed several references throughout the comprehensive plan to the heritage guides that have been developed, and kind of a suggestion that those might have a fit going forward. We're hoping to develop some additional heritage guides, but we have a pretty good supply right now, and they're available at the museum and other locations throughout the community. Any special comments or thoughts about how they fit into the overall process here?
We can definitely expand upon those, I think. The museum has done guided tours through downtown, walking tours, not just guides, but actual events. We'd love to do our bike tours again through different neighborhoods. We'll definitely look at doing one this next year, planning those out again, and doing more in the future. That will fit directly right into educating the public and hopefully getting more of an audience to our downtown as well, because we'll advertise those and on our Facebook page, social media, as well as all of our media contacts inside Fremont County, as well as outside too. So that fits right in with that plan. It's just a matter of scheduling and doing the research. And we're also looking at doing some partnerships too, not only with possibly the library, the Prison Museum, and hopefully we can get some interns and other volunteers involved in that process. Did that answer your question?
Do you have any more questions? Well, if not, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for all you've done.
Sure.
I guess I'll open up the meeting for public comment or general announcements.
I have a couple announcements. Unfortunately, we don't have any upcoming webinars or training opportunities, probably because of the holiday season is coming up, but the annual report for our CLG is due to the state this next week. I've been finalizing that. I'll send out that report to them as well as get a copy to all of you so you're familiar with all the things that we've accomplished this last year. The other thing that's coming up is the CLG grant. Last week they had a webinar regarding that grant opportunity for CLGs to, we've applied for it in the past in developing our historic preservation plan. This is this year's round, our upcoming year's round. The draft is due on the 9th, and the final is due on the 17th of January. If there's anything specific that you want to look at in doing a grant, it's mainly for surveying and/or developing a historic preservation plan. We'd have to get the contractor RFP or RFQ for that type of grant to determine how much we would ask for. Let me know if there's anything that you think priority-wise. That's coming up really fast, though. The other thing that's coming up probably in January is the next round of CLG scholarships for attending workshops and conferences. When I find out more about that, I'll let you know. I know a few of you took advantage of that this last year for attending the conference up in Denver. So there's an opportunity for that, just to get that on your radar. The Saving Places conference is in February again. And the other thing that's coming up sooner rather than later is our board recognition dinner. That will be in December 13th. I'm jumping ahead. Our next scheduled meetings for November and December are scheduled right before the holidays. So having to bump those up or canceling those, that's up to you. I know we've already reset the meeting for our committee for November 16th. The other thing that might be coming up, we've been talking with a homeowner about submitting an application for getting her property listed on the local historic registry. I have not received that application yet, but when I do, I can let you know. That might be a special meeting, depending on when we get that application submitted. But that could be something that happens in December or late November. Probably not late November, that's Thanksgiving. December, possibly, or the beginning of the new year.
Yeah, with our next meeting supposed to be the day before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I think we should
Yep.
plan on, or basically wait to see when that application comes in, if we could possibly move it forward a week for a special meeting or
Yeah, we could.
or later in December.
And that's entirely up to you in that application. The one in December is scheduled for the 28th of December. Staff, I know, is holiday is that Monday and Tuesday because the Christmas falls on a weekend this year. So holiday would be the 26th and 27th. That'll be our first day back. And I know some people go on vacation too.
Mr. Chairman, the Planning Commission, who we precede most times, moved themselves back a week, both in November and December. So if you're looking for an actual date that you want to plan on, our December Planning Commission, I believe, is the 21st. So that would be a week prior to when we would normally do it. And then in November, it's the 17th. Planning Commission is on the 17th. So if we wanted to continue to precede the Planning Commission, those would be the two dates, November, December, that you could consider.
And the 17th is a Thursday.
It'd be the
We
16th.
we put it on the 17th because the third Wednesday of the month also happens to be the Vision Committee for City Council. And the times would conflict with when I think both the Historic Preservation Committee and Planning Commission would need the room.
So on the 17th, prior to the Planning Commission, we would have an opening if we were to have a meeting.
If you did it at your normal time, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I think we should plan on the 17th for November if the application comes in. If not, I think we should stick with the Outreach and Education Committee that we have scheduled for the 16th. And if they don't get that application in time for the 17th of November, how would everyone feel about pushing our December meeting up 1 week? I'm assuming that they would get the application in by then.
No conflicts on that day, the 21st with other meetings?
Pardon me?
Are there any,
Are there any conflicts with the 21st prior to the Planning Commission?
Hang on, let me look.
Again, I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
Normally, this room is not used
December?
on Thursdays.
December, yes, sir.
That's the 22nd of December?
21st.
21st is a Wednesday. There's Vision Committee. Oh, that's canceled.
Yeah, Vision Committee's been canceled.
Planning Commission, what did you say about Planning Commission?
Planning Commission's alternate date for December would be the 21st.
So 6 o'clock for Planning Commission, so there's nothing prior on the 21st.
Well, then, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we plan on the 21st of December at 4 o'clock for our Historic Preservation Commission meeting. We need that extra date.
do we have a second?
Second.
Cindy, roll call?
Chris?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes?
She's not here. Jim?
Yes.
Cindy is a yes. And Mildred? Yes.
All right, motion carries. So we'll wait and see when that application comes in and may have a meeting on the 17th of November, if not the 21st of December. Are there any other announcements or public comments?
I have one other thing, Mr. Chairman, that may be of interest to the Historic Preservation Commission. The Urban Renewal Authority has been considering expanding the facade grant program and the life safety grant program in a pretty significant way that could impact the structures downtown. So just so that it's on your radar screen, and in case you had any input into that process, I know that the URA would certainly welcome your thoughts on how to ensure that we're structuring those programs in a way that's both beneficial to the historic preservation of our downtown as well as to the business owners.
And I'm happy to get you guys those documents once I have them cleaned up and finalized. Happy to send them to you.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further business, I will adjourn this meeting.